In today's video, we're testing out two viral recipes, one from Instagram and one from TikTok. Welcome back, I'm Mo and you're watching Real Fake Pizza. Let's start with a breadstick recipe. It looks simple, cheesy, and honestly, pretty tasty. The original recipe called for 500 grams of flour and a full packet of dry yeast with only a 1-hour proofing time. That's a lot more yeast than I'd normally use, so I tweaked the recipe a bit with the pizza app and came up with this instead. I dissolved the salt in room temperature water, added the yeast, and whisked it together for a few seconds. Then I poured in the flour and mixed everything with a kitchen spoon until no dry flour remained. Once the dough came together, I let it rest for 20 minutes. After the first rest, I added 120 grams of halved olives and gave the dough a few stretch and folds. Then, after another 20-minute rest, I added 100 grams of feta cheese and folded the dough a few more times to distribute everything evenly. Finally, I drizzled over the olive oil, covered the dough, and left it to proof for another 2 hours. 2 hours later, I tipped the dough out onto a lightly oiled countertop and gently flattened it into a rough rectangle. Then I cut it into 4 pieces, placed them onto a baking tray lined with parchment paper, and drizzled a little olive oil over the top. After about 10 minutes of baking at 250 degrees Celsius, I removed them from the tray and finished them directly on the stone for a few more minutes to crisp them up. Not gonna lie, they turned out a bit different from the video. They ended up looking more like ciabatta than breadsticks. Chunky, slightly dense, but honestly still really tasty. So the result of the test? Breadsticks? No. Accidental ciabatta? Absolutely.
The second recipe is a super simple burrata dip.
Only a few ingredients and barely any prep. First, we roast the ham in a baking tray for about 4 minutes at 250 degrees Celsius until crispy. Then, into a second tray go the tomatoes, with the chopped garlic on top. Drizzle everything with a bit of olive oil, add some salt and black pepper, and bake for around 10 minutes. While everything cools down a bit, I smash a handful of basil leaves together with some olive oil to make a quick basil paste. I also added a pinch of grated Parmesan cheese. Assembly is really simple. First, smash the burratas into a serving bowl with a fork to create a creamy base. Drizzle over half of the basil paste, sprinkle on half of the chopped almonds, then top everything with the roasted tomatoes. After that, break the crispy prosciutto over the top. Finish with the remaining basil paste and almonds, and that's it. Super simple, super tasty, absolutely approved. So the final score? Breadsticks? Not approved. Accidental ciabatta? Surprisingly decent. Burratadip? Absolutely approved. Honestly, the dip alone made this whole experiment worth it. Let me know which one you'd actually try down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.